Cool. So this was Mikito taking black and David taking white. Let's get into it. Yep, all looks good so far. Nothing to really comment here. Yeah, everything looks good. Yeah, I mean, all these moves, there could be slight variations, but all these moves look perfectly playable. No real comments. I might be more inclined just to take a corner move, but it's hard to fault L3. I mean, this is still a large move to attack the G3 stone later on, so totally fine. But I think that this might be maybe a little bit more common, but I mean, it's a pretty negligible difference. I think this is L3 is okay. Just the idea being is that now this R3 stone is kind of annoying, right?
I think when we discussed the game, there was a question in the bottom left corner of if I should have gone outside instead of inside.
It's pretty early. So I think either one is probably viable. Something like this might happen.
Okay. I think when we discussed it, it was because I had the white stones on the bottom right as well. But so okay, so from your perspective, they're both playable.
I think they're both perfectly playable. The only difference I might say is I might play here instead of playing down.
Okay.
And the reason for that is when black plays here, now you don't need to answer, you can try to attack.
I see.
Or you can ignore and play elsewhere.
Okay.
Where the follow-up's not that big a deal. Whereas here, now you have to answer, right? And now the black got this move for almost for free. Territory doesn't change all that much. And now black gets to play J3. So I think it's a bit of preference to a certain degree. I think none of these moves are really, it's hard to fault any of these moves.
Okay,
great. Whether you do something like this.
I mean, I think the AI said things were relatively even until around move 80, I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's probably correct. I can't get to move 80, but at least that's the stuff I've seen so far.
Yeah.
I will say though, usually when you have this move at Q10 for black, playing at R3 is maybe a little bit better than playing at R4, with the idea being that now, if you play this type of variation, White's influence is kind of silly here, and black gets a very large corner, and whereas white's influence is really doing not doing much of anything. So the idea being that like attaching here allows white to keep the corner to a certain degree, or allows to keep maybe a little bit more of the corner. And the outward influence that white gets here is not particularly helpful, right? So white would probably do something like this, but white gets more territory here than it did in the other variation. So this is probably a little bit more common.
Okay.
White would protect, and again, these black stones are working well with these black stones, and white seems over concentrated for only about 8 or so points, and then black gets to come back and play here or over here or something like that. Probably here.
Yeah.
This is definitely questionable, again, for that same reason that we were talking about, where this influence over here is not that helpful because of Q10. This has to be wrong.
Okay, now let me explain why I was doing it, so you can explain what about my logic is crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
Because what happens is I've been listening to Gojuan lectures about peeps, and when a peep is helpful. Now, if I just went to 3-3 without doing that, he gets good shape because he then gets to go Q5.
You wouldn't want to do Q5 because that allows white to get the Atari.
Ah, okay. Basically, I was looking at making that vertical thing a little stronger before I played the 3-3, and it felt to me that gave, then he was going to fill it, and then I was going to go 3-3, and that then felt like my bottom was more secure. So but essentially it gives him sente there. Yeah,
it gives white sente, it gives black sente. And this stone is not really helping the strength of this group over here. Like this is a pretty strong group. We'd rather take the territory, right? Like we have to, when we're trying to figure out whether we're taking influence or territory, like how much is this extra stone helping with the influence? Very little.
Okay, so that
and black, and the other thing is black could also consider playing here too.
Yeah. So basically, that peep did not help me. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely an advantage for black here. Probably, maybe this move's a little bit small. You know, we might be a little bit more fearful of this move if maybe white had a lot of strength over here, and building up some sort of influence would be good. You know, but I think white would probably need a couple more moves over here in order to actively make good use of it. In this position here, it's not that important to push up because white's relegated to this corner territory and black's kind of relegated to this. Neither side is really getting much more by pushing upwards or downwards. So even though it seems potentially like a focal point because you can push on either side, neither side has mapped out territory that would map it.
Okay.
So for that reason, I would probably play just a large territory move. Yeah, something like this might be good. You know, because there's still a lot of Aji left here. Or sorry, there's still a lot of room left for black to live. So I don't really think it's necessary for black to play another move. And if you did want to play locally, maybe you play here to reduce the effectiveness of this wall, right? If you're really worried about some sort of weakness here.
We both were sort of thinking about and tempted to play on the top. Yeah, we can get a double. Either of us could get a double skip there.
Yeah, I think M17 is probably going to be your best bet because it sets up a really nice invasion. Oops, excuse me, a really nice invasion over here.
Yeah.
And kind of, you know, you can eke out the points that white's mapped out over here. And similarly, if white gets this move, and black plays elsewhere, there's a lot of Aji that's left over here, or something like this too.
Okay.
So again, a little bit slow.
Okay,
this is an interesting idea. Yep.
Now, so that was the other thing I had a question on. I'm looking at black's side, and I'm trying to decide whether to play on the left, on the top, or do something to stop black from getting a big side.
Yeah, I think this is fine because white's pretty solid everywhere. I think it's okay to play. I might expect something like this a little bit more, with the idea being that you can come in and invade at S10, or it works maybe a little bit better. You know, the idea being, let's take a look. If you play here and then play here, right?
Yeah.
And black plays here, is this not a worse result than you playing here and then black playing here?
Yes.
Right. So attaching here, if we know that black's going to play at R10, maybe it looks a little bit weird, because if you play here and then black plays at R10, which is a very reasonable move for black, we are happier in this variation.
And if that were to happen that way, if I was to be at 12 and then black goes there, would I want to go jump up at to the left from the one like there, or would I be better off making a tight base?
I think you could probably do either one. I don't think it's going to matter all that much. This is kind of what I would expect to happen, but you'd probably want to come back and add a move anyway.
Okay.
So I think either variation is perfectly playable, whether you jump here directly or play here. But it looks like black felt strong here, which is fine. I think black has the strength to attack. This is definitely questionable. So when you play these attachment moves, you're almost always going to play here after black khan, with the idea being that you'll sacrifice something to get something on the outside. So
okay,
this is kind of what I would expect to happen. You know, maybe, or what you could do is before you respond, you can set up something over here so that the ladders start working for black or for white.
Okay.
Something like this.
Okay.
You know, just setting up this something over here that'll actually work. I think if you play here directly, it can get pretty complicated, which is probably what you were trying to avoid. But playing here doesn't make sense.
I've seen double hanes frequently there.
Yeah.
And was tempted by it and said, I have no idea what to do with that. But
I would have rather you just ignore it entirely here, because think about this. If you play here, black plays here, are you going to play here?
No.
All right. So somewhere along the line, the moves got weird.
So I could just leave that as Aji, and
if you're not willing to play the double hane, yeah, you got to leave it as Aji. But unfortunately, this is kind of not the best thing to leave as Aji. Like, you have to play the double hane. Like, let's say you switch gears and played here. This is obviously a very nice result for black, right?
Okay.
Is cross cut an option over there?
You could cross cut. but I don't know how great it's going to be.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Um,
You still
playable.
reduced, you still
It's
reduced
playable.
quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
that-
there's obviously much more complicated variations. So like, black could maybe black just plays here, something like this.
Okay, that's a little bit worse with the shape.
Yeah, but there's plenty of Aji here at the very least, right?
Okay,
Yeah, you can consider this as well. I think that I do think that the stronger move would be to attach R12.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind for future games.
Yeah, this is unfortunately just like, what is the purpose of this wall, right? It's just giving black territory at this point. And then coming here, like you have to play here.
Okay,
And then like this is the only line you should really be considering if you're going to play in this way, and maybe something like this. But again, you'd only do this if you already had a move over here that's actually mapping out territory for you. So this whole variation, I think we can just say is not going to be particularly helpful for white.
okay,
So again, if we're not going to play here, just leave it. Or even a Hane on this side would be better, right?
Okay.
Because then you can maybe give up the stone and play something like this.
okay.
Which is also something that white could consider, although I think just the double Hane is better. Yeah, this just seems bad for white. Black gets the big move here. It's not only is a territory move, it's attacking this group and it's attacking this group. So I definitely would give the advantage to black right now. Because white has to play this kind of sad move over here just to connect.
Yeah.
And it's not actually getting territory. You can probably add an extra move here. I don't think this is going to hurt. The idea being that if you play here and white gets here, white's kind of gotten a little bit better of an outside, and you have to answer anyway. So it's kind of a free exchange for both sides, I think.
And I did eventually get that, I think, that move on top.
And there's still cutting points here to think about, so you're not losing too much. This is fine. Yep. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this all seems okay for black. White's gotten a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, but I think black's territory over here is enough to match all of that. And so black's ahead by at least 15 or so, if not more.
I liked my next move, I think.
I was actually it's funny, I looked at this right before and I was gonna say this is too small.
Too small.
Much too
Okay.
small, yeah. We need to be focusing on something like this
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
If black comes here, then we can actually start to make some territory over here. If black chooses to maybe defend over here, then we can surround it and actually make some territory over here as well. So yeah, this move right now is just much too small. I also think that black would probably be better to play here as opposed to coming down directly. Puts a little bit more pressure on the stone, although I think that white playing here right now is probably a little bit too small. I would probably jump first, force black to play here and then play here.
Okay.
And
then I actually spent one more move.
Yeah, you spent another move that was unnecessary. And here, I don't think black needs to answer. If black's going to answer, I think black should probably answer something like this, because again, white doesn't really have a great cut here.
Yeah. I think black went on top, and then I added a move that I didn't need to make.
Yeah. So black answering here is a little small. I think that black probably should just be playing something like that. Especially because black did play that slow move with E5 here. This group is a lot stronger than it looks. And then yes, the white answering at E1 is just dame basically. There's no reason to come back. And then black answering this is again just dame.
Reciprocal dames.
Yeah. And so I'd end up getting this move, which is quite nice because now when black plays here, white can play here and start making some actual territory in the center and also build up a little bit of a framework on this side as well. So I would say this is probably, white kind of got some weird exchanges over here that may or may not have been super positive, but now white's center influence is actually becoming something which makes this exchange over here, which was bad, playable. This move here is definitely too small. If black plays here, all you do is just extend up, and the territory change is very small.
Okay.
And this just isn't Sente. Like black's gonna play here, And now what did you get? An extra 3 or 4 points? You know, it's not, we need to be, with white, because white has to get this like center territory, white needs to be thinking a little bit more globally.
Yeah.
And so again, something like this is what I would be thinking of.
Okay. Strategically, I was hoping with my original move on the right side that I was going to make black smaller. And even though I did get a bit of a wall facing left, black's corner is huge.
It is, it's not just corner, it's side too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Black answering here is definitely too small. You know, the worst that white could do is play here. But, oh, excuse me, but there's no cuts because there's always this move here.
Yeah.
So you're basically, it's, you know, maybe a 5-point move.
Yeah.
And then allowing white to get this again, expanding the center territory, actually making these stones do something, and building up this side territory over here as well. I think that this move just doesn't do enough to help the center group. This is obviously not a small point move, but because white's really strong everywhere, I think white can afford to be a little bit more aggressive and either play at C12 or D13 to try to get a little bit more. Again, because black does have such a large territory, we can't just be, we can't always just play small moves here and expect to win. Although I think it's pretty close right now. This is fine, not a big deal. Okay, these are some good exchanges for black. I these are fine. If I were black, I would probably extend here instead of connect. The idea being that if white cuts here, you can try to fight it out. And you can maybe stop white from getting here. What you don't want to have happen, and the reason why I'm not necessarily in love with this move is because now white can play here and extend up onto the fourth line and put a little bit of pressure on these stones.
Sorry to interrupt. Just
yeah,
keep in mind the time.
Sure. Yeah. I guess rather than keep going, just David, were there any other parts in the
There's
game that you want to ask
actually
about?
a Tsuji I missed that's interesting at move 79, which is just a little bit ahead of where we are. I had the move at F10 that I could have made.
And here? Oh, you're
The
saying
white.
after this?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
And you know, what I did do was 10 points worse.
Although if black plays here,
basically that group on the left, that black group on the left could be cut off.
Yes, I think there's definitely some Aji there, but it's not quite clear. Like if black Khan is here, the Aji is definitely a bit different.
Yeah.
Something like this might happen.
Okay.
So it's definitely not good for black, but I think there's some Aji. But yes, I agree. In this particular situation, black would probably jump here, white would play here, and then black would play here, something along these lines. But when you extend here, play here. Yeah, definitely. F10 would be a good move here to break out.
All right, thank. I know we need to go to the next person. But,
yeah, but you know, you can also cut more larger here.
Okay.
Yeah, you can extend here first and potentially also build up a cut at K9. So I don't think I think that white ignoring here is probably a mistake.
Okay.
I guess you assumed that the group was dead, but I think there's still quite a lot of Aji left over.
Very good.
Separate from just this F10 move. Although that's obviously a huge part of it. Okay, so I guess we'll stop there unless there are any other questions on this game.